Hello, folks. Welcome back to another episode of the podcast world at the moment. Today, I want to talk about something a bit different today. I've been seeing in the news a lot about the potentials of medicine. And I think in my last episode, or maybe it was like a couple of episodes ago, I made an episode about how the FDA had recently approved new sickle cell therapies that are actually based on CRISPR technology. And I was really excited about the potentials of CRISPR. Like maybe we can do something beyond just sickle cell disease. There may be some more diseases to do that. But I've noticed in the news that the medical industry has taken a different turn away from CRISPR to Ozempic. I mean, it looks like our future for healthcare is now dictated on how we proceed with weight loss. Let me explain here. So it all comes down to diabetes. Two types. First, you got your type 1 diabetes and type 2 diabetes. And they're similar, but they're different. Essentially, whenever you have diabetes mellitus, or diabetes in general, it's affecting your body's ability to control your blood sugar levels. Like how much glucose, which is our sugar that we use for energy, how much sugar is floating around in your blood. Sometimes too much is too bad, and too little is also bad as well. There's a little balance that we strive for. And so with type 1 diabetes, or rather when it comes to controlling our blood sugar, our bodies produce insulin. And what insulin does is it gets absorbed by your cells, and it causes your cells to actually absorb some of that glucose from our blood, causing us to lower our blood sugar levels. And glucagon, it's another kind of chemical that raises blood sugar levels. We have more glucose floating around in the blood. So, two things, insulin and glucagon. They're both hormones. They're both used to regulate blood sugar levels. And in type 1 diabetes, typically, we don't have enough insulin. I mean, if you think about it, insulin is produced by our pancreas in our body. And with type 1 diabetes, it's an autoimmune condition that attacks those pancreas cells, causing us to not have any insulin. And then there's type 2 diabetes, which is different, where, yes, the pancreas doesn't produce the optimal amount of insulin, but the key thing here is our bodies are actually insulin resistant. As in, when the insulin floats around in our bloodstream as a hormone, our cells don't accept it. And because of that, we still have trouble, type 2 diabetic patients have trouble controlling their blood sugar levels, creating all sorts of issues. And previously, one of the number one recommendations, especially because of its link to obesity, was a good treatment for type 2 diabetes is kind of, yes, taking insulin and regulating what you eat, but more specifically, weight loss kind of helps aid in that sort of treatment. And now that brings us to our current topic, which is Ozempic. So Ozempic was produced by this company called Novo Nordisk. And they've also produced a drug, Wegovy, which is very similar to Ozempic. We'll get more into that later. But essentially, what Ozempic does is it's, first of all, it's a brand name. It's a brand name for the drug called semaglutide. I apologize for the pronunciation. Essentially, this specific drug is meant to mimic a specific hormone in our body called GLP-1. Sorry. And GLP-1 is a very important hormone in our digestion. I mean, in our pancreas, it's what produces that insulin and lowers those, which, helps to lower our blood sugar levels. And it suppresses the production of glucagon, which, like I said before, raises blood sugar levels. That's what it does in the pancreas. So there's that. But then also in our stomach, GLP-1, by having that drug kind of mimic the GLP-1 hormone, it also helps to prevent or lower the rate of gastric emptying. So in other words, the food that is being digested in our stomach, the production of GLP-1 and just this addition of this semaglutide drug, it kind of slows down your digestion, making you feel more full. And finally, GLP-1 in our brains, we have receptors in our brains for GLP-1. What it does is it actually lowers our food cravings. It suppresses those hormones that make us want to eat, that builds us this appetite. It actually suppresses that. And that's what GLP-1 does. And like I said before, the Ozempic drug is meant to mimic those functions. So when you inject yourself with that Ozempic, you're essentially injecting more of this specific hormone that mimics the GLP-1 hormone in our body and leads to suppressed appetite, which in turn actually causes weight loss because you're not eating as much as before. So that's overall the physiology of how Ozempic works. But as you can see here, especially with America being ranked consistently as one of the most obese countries in the world, and especially the insecurity around weight, it's obviously become a hot button issue. As nowadays we're seeing people just taking Ozempic to reduce their weight loss because there are actual proven benefits to reducing your weight by taking Ozempic. And the alternatives are, well, for example, diet and exercise, which are challenging to do at a long-term pace here. It takes a lot of energy to plan your diet, stay with that diet, and then exercise, and trying to work your body and trying to wean off of all these food cravings. I mean, it's not easy. But now there's this Ozempic option. I mean, the other sort of novel alternative that there was gastric bypass and surgical interventions to help reduce those food cravings, which were often given to patients who were morbidly obese and didn't really have had relatively few options. But now we have this drug that can easily kind of reduce those pounds. And I think my question is, as a specific doctor goes by the name of Dr. Mikhail Varshavsky, and for any viewers who watch this doctor, his YouTube channel is called Dr. Mike. He once made a quote saying that if I were to, take all the benefits of exercise and dieting into a single pill, people will pay millions for this. But yet it's so hard to convince people to actually go ahead and exercise. And I think it's very much, he's not wrong, I feel with this issue here. Now, don't get me wrong. Ozempic is very important, and if you have type 2 diabetes, you should definitely talk to your doctor about Ozempic. And yes, this medication is definitely needed. It has proven benefits. But we have to understand that Ozempic was initially created for targeting and treating type 2 diabetes. Because now here's the thing. Because Ozempic has this weight loss miracle effect, people from Hollywood and just, like I mentioned before, influencers online are taking Ozempic. And the problem is, we now have a shortage of this drug. Shortage in which real patients with actual type 2 diabetes who struggle to maintain their weight, and more importantly, struggle to maintain their blood sugar levels, now are having trouble to accessing this medication. Even though Ozempic was really made for these kinds of patients, now it's sort of shifted to be this weight loss craze and at the expense of diabetic patients. That's what my main concern is here. As Dr. Mike had said, right? You can take all the major health benefit of losing weight is just now a single pill. And of course people want to buy it. But now we're doing it at the expense of patients. And it is a hot button issue now. And steps are being taken. For example, Novo Nordisk has created Wegovy to help specifically target that GLP-1 and target the type 2 diabetes stuff. And I think Mounjaro released something, there's Mounjaro now. Recently I looked at something called Autoimmune, which is also helps mimic that GLP-1 protein. Just it's definitely going to be an industry now, which is interesting to think about. Now we're seeing that just from one miracle drug of Ozempic, there's this potential big industry. It's a game changer. It's a paradigm shift in the weight loss, how we approach weight loss. We can actually have an industry out of this, of multiple companies selling different types of drugs that target weight loss with as little to no side effects as possible, which is definitely interesting to think about. And it definitely makes me wonder, what is the future of our healthcare? Because it seems to me that's where we're going. We're going into this kind of craze of, how do we target weight loss now? We're targeting insecurities But to me, I feel like, that's not a good place to drive our healthcare forward. Like, just the thought of, oh, how can we invent a new drug to target some other insecurity? Like, oh, how can we target a new drug to, I don't know, make your skin more clear? Or targeting a new drug that, like, with weight loss. How do you simulate weight loss without having to go and do diet and exercise? I feel like, the healthcare industry is setting its minds on kind of going into a more potentially lucrative areas, like I said, like, acne clearing or weight loss. Yeah, they may be more lucrative medical areas, but to me, they seem very frivolous issues to target. Um, Very frivolous issues that these companies are tackling instead of, say, taking a step back and going for much more prominent, much more like much bigger, much problematic disease. Like, for example, sickle cell disease, like with this CRISPR stuff. I don't hear much about CRISPR anymore. I just hear more about Ozempic and just focus on creating a new weight loss drug here instead of, say, actual new different medical interventions like CRISPR to target actual diseases that are harming people, like HIV, like sickle cell disease. So I guess what I'm trying to say is I see a future in which the healthcare industry will be focusing more on on medical issues that aren't actually debilitating medical issues that really affect patients' lives, but are very minor medical dislikes, like I said, skin, how your skin looks and feels. I feel like our healthcare, especially with Ozempic, it's a sign that we might be moving too much into the space of targeting healthcare to handle stuff like, oh, how do you look the prettiest, instead of actually focusing on real things like, okay, how can we cure HIV? That's my worry here. That's the episode for today. Relatively short, around 12 minutes. If you like this episode, I've made much more talking about other medical issues as well on our channel, World at the Moment. But yeah, thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you guys in the next episode. Take care.